These are some of the woods I work with. There's all kinds of stuff, Bacardi and bloodwood from Brazil. This is some pretty rare stuff, comes from Arizona's desert ironwood. Some of this stuff is 800 years old. The tree itself will live to 2,000 years old, so this stuff right here has been around since Christ walked the earth. This stuff right here is called Camphor rosewood. This comes from Thailand, and I'm the only one in the United States that has any right now. You can't get this anymore. The Thailand government doesn't cut it anymore, and they don't export it anymore. Really pretty stuff. This is Honduras rosewood here. This is another nice one. I come out and I'll make 4 or 5 now, and I'll go inside and take a break, you know, and then I'll come back out maybe a little later and I'll make a couple more. And, I can make them a lot faster than I sell them. I mean, you make 5 calls a day at 32 years, a lot of calls. Yeah. I make the calls quite a bit different than everybody else. There's the call. Now it becomes the tricky part. And there's the call. Now we got to sand it and finish it. Desert ironwood is notorious to have small fissures in it. There's a little tiny crack right here, and there's a little knot right here. You can see the little crack right there. So what we got to do is we got to take our CA glue and we'll seal that right there, right here, right here, and let that soak in. That dries it instantly, and then we take our 220 again and buff that out. Now she's ready to finish. Well, actually, there's not a whole lot of people who use a CA finish on their calls right now because they don't know how to get it on the call. You got to move really fast, and there's some secrets to it that I just don't want to give out. So now we have to buff it out, and then we'll put it on the drill press and we'll take it from there. And there's our call. Okay, now we got to take it off of the lathe, tricking itself. First we got to take this off of here, and then we shape the mouthpiece, and then we take a tool and we go on the inside of the call and taper it down to almost nothing till it's almost ready to fall off. And ta-da, there it is. Right now we have to go and tap it out. It's either going to be a call or it's going to be a piece of firewood. It's not a call until we get it tapped out. Just kind of centering the hole, a little bit of a guide for the drill. The wood is so hard that when you start to drill it, the drill will actually bend and go on an angle. So you want to start the hole. When she starts to sing like that, you know you got a good call. Depending on the depth that you drill your sound chamber out will determine a lot of what the call is going to sound like. Okay, now we have the sound chamber drilled and we got to get all those marks out of there. And this is where about 90% of your calls are lost, right on this step right here. Now we have that smoothed out. We got to set our chamber for the sleeve that holds the reed. And that step right there has a lot to do with how the call will operate when you put back pressure on it. There's the call, but it needs a voice. These are rabbit reeds or bird reeds. You want to blade the reed a little bit, test it. Okay, that sounds pretty good. You put the sleeve in there, set it to your depth, put that in there. Now we got to put our reed in there, set our reed, and there's your call. Ready to kill coyotes. I made this set here for my friend Bill Countess, who had a stroke and is no longer doing any hunting. And then we auction these off every year. This year we're starting a Michigan youth hunt. The money from these will come back to Michigan and get some prizes for the kids. And these, the African ebony ones here, get sent out to the World Championships, and all the winners of the World Championships sign these, and then we auction these off for the kids too. And over the last 12 years, Rare Earth has donated over $24,000 to the kids. These two here are Foya burl. This comes from Morocco. The burl itself grows underground. This is another wood that you can't get anymore. And this is a piece of Vera. This is my howler here. This one here will reach out over 1.5 miles. And this is just a little rabbit call. It's a little bird call. This one's inlaid with 23 karat gold. Piece of African ebony. Bird call. Spalted maple. And we put it in a vacuum chamber and inject resin into it so that we can turn it. Otherwise it's too soft to turn. This is a piece of Chichin rosewood. Comes from Central America. Over the years, I got my calls into the hands of quality callers, and then they've won 6 world titles with them. And now everybody in the United States knows Rare Earth Predator calls from Cedarville, Michigan.
In January, we'll be heading for Newberry in the Tahquamenon Country Sleddog Race. The race attracts mushers from Canada, South Africa, New Zealand, and of course the U.S. That list includes local musher and trainer Fred Powers. Fred, along with his family of dogs, lives off the grid in the middle of the Hiawatha National Forest. What does it take to get there? When does the training start? We'll take a look behind the scenes. A look at what it takes to turn a team of dogs into canine athletes ready for the challenges of one of the Midwest's finest sled dog races.
Here's where it starts. After years of breeding, coming up with the right with the right mom and dad to for the type of adult they are, and I don't stress it on performance, but it's on the friendliness and the willing to work. This is Tucker. He's 11 weeks old. There's a litter of 7, and they've got older brothers that are a year older. That's why I duplicated the breeding, and we're going to see this winter how they're going to perform. They're, like I say, they're a year old. They'll be a year and a half old, and they'll be in a sportsman race initially, a few of them, getting used to the distance of running. Right now it's about teaching the puppy to its manners. It's just, say, the household manners. And when they're 7 months old, that's when I start having fun with them running. They don't necessarily get put on a gang line. And then, but by the time they're a year old, they're on that gang line working with the adults. So a year from now, these guys will be 60, 70 pounds. By the time that next winter rolls around, they'll be the ones in the sportsman race, and they'll actually be a team of 12 because they've got a sister that'll be racing in 2 years altogether. This is Boogie, the father of the pups. Now he's 11 years old, and he'll be here until he dies, hopefully 15. I don't pick pups out. I don't think anybody can pick pups out. You've just got to take them to a certain point. You've got to train them, do the manner thing, and then the conditioning. I've at least got to take them until they're 2 years old, and some of them maybe even 3, because I believe that some are just slow. Some don't mature as fast as the others, so there's no picking the puppies. I keep them all. All the dogs here are children from Iditarod and or Quest dogs that have run and finished the race. Most of them are here because their parents were champions. And then I took dogs of my choice from my kennel and bred with males that finished the races and won. Boogie is one of them. His dad was a Doug Swinley that ran in his winning streak. The dwarfs, all the cream-colored dogs here are from another line that Swinley had. It was just because there was 7, and it was Snow White and the 7 dwarfs. And then I've got some other oddball dogs that were champions. Go back to a dog named Sailor. Now, when you look around the kennel here, all my dark dogs originated out of the demon litter. And the demon litter was a female that ran for a fella and was a UP champion. The father was the toughest male that I ever had here, and the nicest male. I try to stress more of the friendliness and try to get the meanness bred out of them. And that starts at the puppy stage, so that by the time they actually get into the kennel, they've got some manners. And so for 12 years, I've been crossing these dogs, breeding them, and knowing what type of dog that I want, especially for selling puppies. And because they've got to be people friendly, but I'm telling you that a really well-bred Alaskan Husky is a running version of a black lab. There's no doubt in my mind. I do not have one for my companion dog. I've got a black lab, and I've had them, and they're so smart, they're so everything, but they're runners, and bred, born, and raised to run. I like naming my litters to whatever they remind me of and to whatever's easy to say, because at times people come here and I've got all 29 males loose, and it's easy to just say, "Boogie boys, come over here," and they just separate themselves out and come over to me. I train them as a group, and then I mix them with different adults that have the attributes for personality, learning those gangline manners. You know, and this is the molding year. You know, I play with the pups and everything and teach them like the house manners and the yard manners. And then when they're somewhere between 4 and 6 months old, they're coming in the kennel regularly. I'll just put some houses in here for them to jump in, and they'll run around on their own. Eventually I'll put them on chains, and then at 7 months I start free running them. And between there and a year old, I've moved them onto a gang line. If they're a medium breed dog, then their bone structure is strong enough. If they tend to be more of the larger breed dog, I might hold back on some of the pulling until they're like a year and a quarter. Because a large breed dog bones development is different. So, you know, you keep everything in perspective, and they start racing when they're a year and a half. That first year, it's more of getting used to other dogs. They've been on the trails with other dogs, so that's not really an issue. But going to new places and moving and driving and all that, that's all new to them, and they can tend to freak out on that first one. And but after that, you start those dog trucks up, and I'm telling you, every dog out here looks like a helicopter blade twirling, because they know that we're going to a race, so they get to where they really love it. It is an amazing thing, and we're going to see it at some point this winter. From here, it's training. From the time that they pop out of the oven, I'm in there with them. I crawl in the house and sleep with them. 2 o'clock in the morning, they usually wake me up, and they're outside playing. So I go out there and I play with them. And if I lay down, they'll curl up with me, and Mom will come over, and that whole piling effect. But it's all about training. Training is manners. Training is, how do you want this dog to respond when it's 2 years old. And then after that, once it's gone that first year, then for the most part, what you've got on your hands is an Olympic class athlete. Once you reach so high up into the bloodlines, and you really need to condition them like a Olympic class athlete. And Lord knows I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've learned a lot. And then after that year and a half, then it's nothing but conditioning an Olympic class athlete.
Well, that's it for tonight. If you'd like to keep tabs on what's coming up on Discovering or see where we've been, you can join us on Facebook or go to 906outdoors.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week right here on Discovering. Welcome to Discovering. One of the most successful ways to hunt predators is to use calls. Tonight we'll find out what's involved in making some of the most sought after calls in the country.
But a good quality hardwood, you'll have a good quality call.
Then we'll visit with dog trainer and musher Fred Powers for part 1 of a 4-part series about the road to the Tahquamenon Country Sleddog Race.
This is Tucker. He's 11 weeks old.
That's all tonight, so put your feet up and the remote down. It's Monday night and time for Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Predator hunting is a fast-growing sport here in Michigan, and it's been popular for many years across the U.S. You'll find predator hunting competitions of various types from one end of the country to the other. Many of these hunters and competitors count on predator calls to coax their prey into scope range. And some of the most sought-after calls are made by a craftsman right here in the UP. I took a trip to the east end of the peninsula to a small shop in Cedarville to find out more about the art of call making.
We started Rare Earth 32 years ago in a need to get out to the coyote hunting contest, and I wanted to make a a nice, pretty call, and I started with a local hardwood, bird's eye maple, and we sold enough to get out to the contests out in Wyoming and Colorado, and I gave one to my friend who was animal damage control officer down in Four Corners, and he'd never heard anything like it before, and so he ordered a bunch of them, and I started to think, well, the only difference between my stuff and the generic stuff on the market is I was working with a quality medium, a hardwood, which made the sound different than anybody else's. So I started to think, well, I know where to get hardwood, and then it took off from there, and now we're working with 26 different hardwoods from all over the world. Well, first of all, we take a block of wood, and this is a piece of desert ironwood, and we mark the centers, and then we put it on the lathe. And shape it to what we need it to be, whether it's a howler or a red F or a magnum is what we call the larger ones. Take reference points on whatever call we're going to do, then the rest is done freehand. I mean, I've done it so many times over the years. Now we got it round, we got to get it to size. So what I'll do is I'll adjust this in so we don't lose a finger. You see some cracks in here. We'll fix that when we get down deeper and see what exactly we've got to work with. I do it a little bit differently. I make them backwards. I make the call first, and then I go over on my drill press, and then I tap it out. Take our call, mark it. When I do tap it out, each one will be different depending on how the call comes out. The thickness of the call depends on where I tap the sound chamber out. And that's the beginning of our call. Now we just got to shape it.